Welcome to part 2 of this build. In episode 1, we talked about building the helmet. In this episode, we'll be talking about building the body. Just like I mentioned in the first episode, this whole thing started out as an older costume. I have an entire build series on that if you're interested. But for now, let's get building. Aside from the battle damage, I also wanted to do some repairs and adjustments. In my rush to build this originally, I skipped over some details here and there and got some things wrong. So this time around, I wanted to try and correct what I could within the time frame that I had. I made several adjustments to the arms, and then used my Sharpie to mark battle damage to be cut out with my X-Acto knife. I then spun the upper body around and started making additional bits in the back that I had missed originally. Referencing images of Robocop from the movie and video games, I drew out all the extra little doodads that I could see to either be cut out or made and attached. And with everything drawn out, I then went to town making those additions, cutting out new vents for the back of the arms, and making additional bits to be glued on with contact cement. Alright, so let's do a little quick recap on where we're at so far. Again, I am still sick, I have my coffee, I have my halls, I am not doing good. So I'm giving myself the rest of this weekend to try and finish up all the battle damage and pretty much everything before paint. So far, I think we have shown our helmet. I still have a little bit more battle damage to do, but as you can see, I've already done some here. I've taken a marker and more or less drawn where I want to do more. If you can see on my monitor, I have a ton of pictures of various different versions of a battle damaged Robocop from both movies, video games, stuff like that, just to get an idea of artistic choices for where that battle damage should go. What I've also been doing is I have been going over the armor, not just doing battle damage and stuff like the holes here and some small bullet holes. I've also been doing some corrections. These spots here in the arm used to be a lot wider. I brought them in to be a little more accurate to the character. The little trimming that was on this arm is only supposed to be on this arm. This side is supposed to be smooth, so I took all that trim off. It is very rough right now in terms of shape. I completely forgot how quick and amateur this whole thing was when I built it, because even something like this, it is so unevenly cut, it bothers me. I have been going back and redoing some. For example, this piece here in the back, I redid that and I just brought it out. I did more cutouts too, like this here. Extra little bits on the back of the arms. So I'm adding details, doing some corrections. I added these carvings as well for the back. Probably hard to see with the camera. So there's gonna be a lot of stuff that needs sanded down and cleaned up. So that's gonna be fun, which means everything's gonna have to get repainted, which is good because I have a handful of leftover plastic dip cans. Everything is also very crackled up. It's probably hard to see unless I get it in no lighting, but a heat gun will fix all of that. Some of that is just from wear and tear from wearing it last 2 years ago, but it's also from me just handling it so much. So I can fix that as well. Again, I still have some marker spots where I want to do some additions. Like up here, there should be a little extra plating, a little piece of metal, it's supposed to be up there, stuff like that. So I'm adding detail and then ripping everything up. How far I'm going to do the ripping up, I want it to at least be enough that it's justified to kind of sell the character of a zombie Robocop. So that's gonna be difficult. I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, I wish I would have just redid the whole thing, because I'm seeing a lot of my imperfections and it's driving me nuts. But I don't have the time to go back and just remake everything. I'm not even going to humor the idea, because if I start thinking about it, I'll do it, and I don't want to do it. But yeah, that's where we're at. That's what we're doing. Let's keep doing it. From here, I hopped all over the place from piece to piece with my marker and X-Acto knife, drawing damage and carving out what I thought looked good for that piece. Adding more damage and bullet holes to the chest and arms, the helmet, and the legs. Okay, so I want to talk about something real quick. I just thought of it, and I don't think I've ever talked about it before. So when doing battle damage, there's several ways to go about it. So there's a common phrase, like in cosplay, I can't actually, I'm going to say it's common, but I don't know the actual word for word saying. So if you accidentally screw something up, you can just turn that into battle damage. That works, but at the same time, when you're intentionally doing battle damage, it makes a lot more sense if you do it with a story in mind. So for example, all the markings that I'm doing right now on the legs, the shine is making it hard to pick up. All the magic marker that I'm drawing, yeah, there. See how it kind of like chips here and then makes the full impact and then goes. The story I am telling with this damage, the idea that I'm doing with the damage for the entire thing, there's not going to be a ton of damage in the back. It's mostly all going to be in the front. The idea is that this is right after zombie Robocop encounters a group of somebodies, and they're all just unloading on him, you know? So he's taking a ton of frontal damage. So that's all the bullet holes, all the scrapes are going to come from the front and then wrap around. And then he finally just gets everybody. So the most I'm probably going to have is going to be all facing forward, and then maybe a few here and there, just a little bit from behind. But in the end, the story is that he got everybody. I mean, you don't need a huge story, but just an idea of where that battle damage is coming from. That way it's consistent and makes sense altogether. Otherwise, it's just all random. That's fine if your character's like battle worn, you know, like he's been through 100 battles. That would make sense. But for something like this, I'm like, I need there to be a centralized reason for everything to go where it's going, so it's not just completely random. So that's the story I'm telling myself. I'm like, okay, all this battle damage is from zombie Robocop going in, maybe to the precinct. You know, he just got infected, he's coming back, and he changed, and all the other cops are like, oh shit, what's going on with Robocop? And he's like, brains, or I don't know, baby food, or and they're like, shit, take him down. So they're just unloading on him, and you know, and he's just going at them all, and he gets them all. That's going to be our zombie Robocop. That's his backstory that I'm making up, to at least explain the battle damage. That way the battle damage is consistent in some way. So this is from all the headshots that are trying to go on. Maybe someone had some very high caliber stuff and broke the visor. But yes, so all the bullet holes are going to be front and then scrape off the sides. There might be a few on the sides, but very little to almost none in the back. That said, it also might sell something interesting too, because someone could see it from behind and be like, oh my god, it's Robocop, and then you turn around and it's like, ah! So, works that way too. There's honestly not too much to talk about here, just more battle damage again. But I would like to note that while I do have my story in mind for this battle damage, I'm still referencing various images again of damaged Robocops from various sources, like the movie, the game, and this model for Mortal Kombat. Some of these hits I mimicked, if they looked cool and fit my story. I also used my Dremel in an attempt to smooth out the seams and corners that I had previously missed in the original build. My hope was to clean up some of my imperfections, but a bit of a spoiler, when it came to paint later on, this sanding did more to highlight those specific spots because I was sanding over existing paint. Normally this would be bad, but the rough texture it created actually ended up adding character to the finished product, making it look even more worn and decayed. Gotta love happy accidents. Okay, so we are on the home stretch. I was really hoping to have this done the last time I was off work, but here we are. I think I've already mentioned it, but I completely forgot how bad this thing was. In terms of like how rushed I had put it all together, there's a lot of imperfections, and I mean a lot. Some of it was the template, some of it was me, a lot of it was me, in terms of like the edges and seams not being clean enough. I didn't really do any sanding at all when I was assembling this, so there was a lot of stuff that just looked really bad put together. There's a few things though left that I really want to do. So I think I'd already mentioned that like I had added these cut lines in the back that are supposed to match up with all that stuff. But one thing I don't like, and I never did like, is the center back here. The shoulder blades are too close together, and it looks like he's kind of doing like one of these the whole way through, where the shoulder blades are kind of like back in. So I wasn't going to do it, but I think I'm going to. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to separate it somehow and then try and make a new piece to angle it out more. That way this looks a little more, I don't know. I already have stuff here, so it's going to be difficult. I might just bring it in just a little bit, because right now the centerpiece is farther in than the top. So I think that, let's do a visual representation. So if the shoulder blade is here and the underpiece is there, it is, the inside here is wider. So we have like a peak like that for our shoulder blades. What I want to do, so making it to go outward and flare out like that is probably going to be out of the question. So getting it to look more like that, where it flares out from the center and then out, because that would require it to me to cut off to pretty much here. That would be taking off almost a whole inch of the shoulder blades. So what I'll end up doing then is, instead of having an angle, I think I'll just make it go straight. So it'll be from where this ends to this straight up. It won't look as good as I want, but it'll look better. If I can, I might. My main concern is because I've already have all the artwork and stuff here that's already close to it, so I can't bring it in too much, because then it kind of messes all that up, unless I tear it off, move it over, which I can do. But I, again, wanted to have this done the last time I was off, and I didn't, so here we are. But that is what I'm going to do. I want to do that, and then the other major thing I want to do, so when I started doing all this battle damage, I was referencing different images, and I'm like, okay, I have like my story in mind to make it make sense, but I already came up with that idea after already cutting out a bunch of stuff. Well, it doesn't look that bad, I guess, but I feel like there should be more of a story, because you have a, like, by that I mean a story like for them to make sense. So you can see there's like a lot of heavy damage right here and right here and right here, almost like he got hit with a very like a heavy barrage of high caliber weapons, and it penetrated the armor. So like it hit here, busted that all up, came here, scraped that, hit this, you know, like it was like there's a heavy impact of something right here, and it just I tried to do the same with other bullet holes, so you'd have like a small trail, like there's one here, there, there. So there's kind of like a line of bullets. I don't want to go too crazy with that line because it's, you know what I mean, if someone's shooting, it's yeah, let's get to work and get this thing done so I can finally paint it and move on to something else. I started by cutting out the existing piece in the shoulder blades by giving it 2 angle cuts. The inner piece got an outward 45, and the shoulder blade got an inner 45. This way the replacement piece can form a good 90-degree straight bend. With the piece cut and removed, I also marked and cut off an additional 1/2 inch from the shoulder blades. And from there came time to mock up the replacement. To do this, I just taped together some paper and held it up against the opening from the inside. Then using a Sharpie, I traced out that opening. I then cut that piece of paper out and transferred that to foam, remembering that the inner piece needed an outer 45-degree cut and the outer piece needed an inner 45-degree cut to form that 90-degree bend. With a little bit of contact cement, press those new pieces into place. Okay, I am waiting for glue to dry for these 2 pieces here to go here. Not a huge noticeable difference, but the shoulder blades are farther apart. Comparing it to some reference images, they are up very high, but that's fine because if you look at the front, the chest is the same way. The pieces are out very far, so that's, I guess, fine. If I wanted to, I could try and find a way to bring this forward some in the middle, but either way, the entire back is a mess. I'm looking at reference images. I mean, granted, there's various different interpretations of Robocop from the original movie to some of the video games and toys and stuff like that, so everything's a little different. But according to the reference images I'm seeing, this here should be further up, this should be up higher, crap like that. So everything is wrong. It's all wrong. But at this point, I mean, what am I going to do? Rebuild the whole thing? It's a Halloween costume. I'm going to wear it on over a weekend, you know? So as long as it sells Robocop, that's all that matters. I'm still going to try and clean some stuff up, fix some things a little bit more. But we're getting very close to just being done in general with the whole thing, or fixing it up, quote unquote. Once these are done, I'll put them on. I'm trying to find maybe 1 or 2 more small things, and then after that, go through, smooth everything out. I need a smaller bit to kind of get some of these corners and stuff because they are very, very chopped up. Same with here. I mean, I did not hit anything with a Dremel when I did this the first time. Granted, again, Halloween costume, I was not expecting to do a lot of fancy detail work, so it's not a huge issue. One of the original ideas I had for this, when I was talking earlier about like the breakage in the front, was that one, I wanted to tell a story, but I also wanted to have something underneath because I bought a ton of like red L lighting so that I could just fill the entire inside with red light, so I could just have like a little bit of a red glow underneath to kind of like sell the whole like, oh, I'm evil Robocop. I don't have enough big broken pieces like that to sell that. At the same time, I don't have anything to also put underneath unless I get like some fake wires or something like that, or some fake tubes. I don't think I have any foam dowels that I could do something with to kind of like make up fake wires and stuff. I'll see. If not, I have 10mm foam. I can cut square cylinders out and then round them off into dowels. I can also do that. I'd rather do that than get like actual wires and tube protectors and stuff, because, well, my first thought is I'm taking this to the skating rink, so if I fall, I don't want to damage the floor. EVA foam, it's soft, it's not going to hurt anything. Second, if I do put something like that inside, I guess, now that I think about it, the foam would still be the thing to hit the floor. Plus, the other stuff is plastic. So something like this would be okay to have inside. I would need to find a way to make it look fancy and stuff, but I'll leave this out for now, just in case. All right, glue should be done now that I'm done rambling. Seems to be the theme of my whole channel is Sean Rambles. But at the very least, that gave me kind of an effect I wanted with these little pieces here, because they're supposed to kind of start at a similar level, you can see here, and then the shoulder blade lifts up and then it stays along and then comes down. So that's what I wanted with this, that's what I got, so I'm happy there. This shoulder blade sticks out just a hair more than this one, but whatever. Okay, that's in. Now for me to sit here and brainstorm for like 10 minutes to figure out what else I want to do before I get my heat gun, smooth out some of these wrinkles, and then all of my quick seal to seal all my garbage work that I did earlier. Yep, back to work. All right, so I forgot to record this part, but it's okay. I'm going to talk about it as I'm finishing it up. So I did take these wire tubes, cut them up, and then put them into the chest piece where it's exposed. You can kind of see it there. I did two pieces and I kind of like wrapped them at different angles and stuff, so you can kind of see them. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to glue them in place. I over glued them. And then I was like, well, should I really worry too much about accidentally getting some hot glue dripping or not? Because when I go to paint everything, I can just paint that red or something like that and make it look kind of like blood. So what I had done, if we can get the camera in there real nice and close, yeah, you kind of make out that there is, I took the glue and I just started like crossing from one tube to the other to make it, to give it, there we go. I think it's dry enough now that I can show you in the front. If you can see it, but there's like a goopiness to it now. Almost like spider webs or blood, but it's reaching from one to the other. I like that. So what I'm gonna do is do it to the rest. What I probably should have done is waited until after I had primed everything and started painting, because that's going to get covered in paint now. Because when I go to hit it up with the L lights, that could light up red, and then it could just look like bloody goop. I like that idea. A little bit of a happy accident, I guess. Yeah, so I'm going to do that again after I prime everything. I might rip this out for the time being and do that again after priming. So I like the idea. We're gonna remove that. All right, so tomorrow when I go to prime everything outside, I'll bring it back in and then I'll hit it again with the hot glue like that, and that will look cool. That will look cool. The tubes look pretty decent. I mean, you can't see shit, can you? Again, just dumb little accessories. It's a Halloween costume. You're allowed to be lazy. It's one thing, I think in the original series of this, when I built this, I think I did mention something along those lines. Halloween costumes are the best time for any kind of cosplay, because one, you're allowed to rush it, you're allowed to skip steps, you're allowed to find a cheap, easy solution to something, And that will always, at some point, lead you to either a new technique or new ideas or new ways of thinking about approaching things. And then when you go do your big costumes for the big stuff, like conventions and stuff, you can then apply that new knowledge to the next build. All right, I'm gonna finish touching up a few things because I see a tiny bit of separation here that doesn't affect anything, but I need to fix that. So, all right, gonna do a few more tubes maybe in the back. Like on the back of this arm here, and I'll call it a day on this, and then I'll see if I have any fabric. We'll do that too. All right, back work. And that's just what I did. I cut the tubes to size, taped them still, and then glued them in place. I also adjusted the midsection. Before, only the silver portion was held together with elastic, but the black portion was still solid. I wanted this to flex as well, so that I had more range of mobility while skating. All I did here was split that portion in half with my X-Acto knife and hot glued in some elastic. Another portion I wanted to fix was a circular piece at the shoulder and hips. Originally, I wanted to just clean them up, but they were such a mess I figured it'd be easier to just remove and replace them. This was nothing special. I just peeled out the original piece and used my Dremel to smooth things out in the opening. I then grabbed some scrap 5mm foam and began making new pieces using the old ones as a template. Then after some tremoling and contact cement, I pressed those new pieces in place. While I had my Dremel out, I figured I'd go to town on the rest of the armor once more and sand down all the noticeable seams from the original build. All right, I have officially declared everything here done. So up next, I have my heat gun. I'm gonna try and do a few things here. So there are a ton of wrinkles, if you can get in the light right there, from some wear and tear. That's gonna come right back after I skate it, but if I'm gonna be repainting all this, I want all of those gone. So I need to get them out, and then also all of my new stuff, I need to kind of use that to kind of clean them up as well. Once the foam hits, especially like the new cuts and stuff, that foam will shrink and contract and smooth a lot of that stuff out in a good way. I made sure to take the heat gun nice and slow, not to spend too much time on one spot, because that heat will undo contact cement if you stay on a seam for too long. For existing paint surfaces, you just want to spend enough time to watch the wrinkles ease up. And on new foam, you want to see the surface form a slightly different texture. For the bullet holes and any exposed carvings like that, the foam will want to shrink. This can open up cut lines, and in the case of fake battle damage, it can really open up those gashes that you cut. Well, that went a lot faster than I was expecting. It cleaned up most of the wrinkles and cracks, and the bullet holes all sealed themselves out nice and smooth. One cool thing that I did like, I was kind of expecting it to happen. It's going to be really hard to tell unless I do some serious close-ups. But some of these parts here that are really blown out, like here and here. So when you're heating up foam, obviously the surface layer is kind of condensing. You usually do that before paint to kind of seal in all the bubbles. That way you have a nice smooth surface to paint on. But also it's heating up, so it wants to go into its most natural state. If anyone understands any of the basics of physics, the natural state of everything is round. Planets, suns, every astronomical body is round. That's the easy. It's the strongest shape, but it's also the most simple. So when you're heating up your pieces of foam that you have already put on and everything like that, if you heat them up enough, they're going to want to go to their easiest spot. So, for example, these pecs, if I heat them up, they're going to want to go where these, all these ends that they're connected to, they're going to stay, obviously, but everything here is going to want to pull itself into the easiest spot that it can go to, which usually is going to be to bulge out a little bit and to make that rounded shape. It's the same concept when you're making helmets, anything like that. The heat helps it kind of find its natural spot. But in this case, it's different because I have all these open, ripped up pieces. So what happens is, it's going to be hard to see, but so obviously all of this rounded out like it's supposed to, but anywhere you had this kind of stuff, it wanted to flare out, which helps sell that look of explosion, impact, damage. But parts of this is now like elevated out. So since it looks like something came in this way and did some damage, this corner here is out farther than this one. So it actually follows the path of all the damage because it came in this way. So all of this is kind of blown out while this is kind of blown in, if that makes sense. It's really cool. It goes with the actual direction of the impact. That was not intentional. It's a happy accident. But I guess when I was doing it, I wasn't really thinking about it, but the carve of everything I was doing kind of went with the curvature of how it would expand after heat. So when I applied the heat then, it just like accented that explosion, that damage. So it follows the path of it. So happy accident, super cool. Up next is the stuff. I'm going to give this a minute to cool down before I wrap it up and put it away. So until then, I'm going to take a small little break and then I'm going to get back to work. That's that for this episode. The next episode will cover paint and finishing up all the details. I'll see you in the next one.